The Heir, a king's duty, a wife's sacrifice. Episode 2. The distance between us. The silence stretched between them, fragile as spun glass. Evelyne finally shifted, just enough to break the contact between their hips. Kael's hand slipped from her waist without resistance. Though she could still feel the phantom pressure of his touch, he didn't speak. Didn't reach for her again. Just watched her with those storm gray eyes that revealed nothing yet saw everything. She sat up slowly, the satin sheet slipping down her shoulder. "I'll need a bath," she said, her voice quiet but clear, an attempt at normalcy when nothing felt normal. Kael nodded. "I'll have one made." He rose from the bed with deliberate grace, retrieving his watch and slipping it onto his wrist with efficient movements. The sunlight filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows caught the edge of his jaw. Sharp and calm and devastatingly composed, Evelyne waited for the sound of the door, waited for him to leave. He didn't. Instead, Kael crossed to the kitchenette where a tray of untouched breakfast sat beneath a glass cloche. He picked up a crisp apple, turned it in his hand, then looked at her. "You should eat." She blinked, surprised by the suggestion. "Why do you care?" "I don't," he said, too quickly to be true. A muscle twitched in his jaw. "But if you faint in court, it reflects poorly on both of us." Court, of course. Today they'd appear together, smiling, united, a perfect public image. Evelyne stood, wrapping the sheet around herself as she walked to the dressing alcove. Behind the glass-paneled divider, her outfit was already laid out, a burgundy designer dress with gold detailing down the sleeves. Regal. Controlled. Suffocating. Outside the screen, Kael stripped off the black shirt he had slept in and pulled on a crisp, tailored charcoal suit with subtle bronze threading. He clipped a matte black smartwatch to his wrist before slipping a slim blade into the holster beneath his jacket. Her voice floated over the screen. "Do you always sleep like that?" "Like what?" His tone betrayed nothing. "Like you're not asleep at all. Like you're waiting for something. Or someone." A pause. "Only when someone might stab me in my sleep." Evelyne emerged, fastening the last button at her throat. "You think I'd try?" Kael turned to face her fully. His eyes traveled over her once, taking in the royal burgundy that brought warmth to her skin. "No." That single word settled in the air like an unexpected weight. Not a compliment, not a challenge, just certainty. Their eyes held. Then quietly he said, "You hated last night." A statement, not a question. She didn't deny it. "I know we were supposed to start right away on making an heir. I just couldn't." Kael's gaze didn't waver. Something flickered in those gray depths. Not judgment, perhaps understanding. "I understand, but we will eventually have to. It will look poorly on me if I can't bring forth an heir. On both of us. Politics and duty. Always." She opened her mouth, closed it again. There was nothing to say that wouldn't sound childish or false. Kael set the apple back down on the tray. "I'll meet you at the doors to the Great Hall. Don't be late." He walked to the suite's door and paused just before opening it, his hand resting on the sleek brass handle. The morning light caught on a signet ring she hadn't noticed before, an intricate crest etched in silver, ancient in design but modern in detail. "Sout, I meant what I said, Evelyne." She stilled, her heart skipping oddly. About what? He looked back at her, his profile haloed by the filtered sunlight. "Not touching you unless you ask." Then he left. The door shut behind him, quieter than last night, but it still echoed in the suite that suddenly felt too large and too empty at once. Evelyne stood alone, heart pounding for reasons she refused to name. Her fingers traced the spot on her waist where his hand had rested, warm, strong, oddly gentle. She shook her head sharply, dispelling the thought. She would walk into that court with her chin high, her spine straight, and her mask firmly in place. But God's help her, she was starting to wonder what he'd look like if he ever did let the mask slip. What secrets those storm gray eyes might reveal if they ever truly looked at her, not as a duty or an alliance, but as a woman. More dangerous still was the realization that part of her wanted to find out. The suite was quiet, lit only by the low hum of the artificial hearth. Amber light flickered across the dark stone walls, casting long shadows. Evelyne had changed out of her court gown, now wrapped in a silk-thin robe that offered little warmth, and even less protection from the thoughts pressing in around her. She stood by the tall window, watching mist roll over the outer spires of Kael's keep. Behind her, the door unlatched with a soft hiss. She didn't turn. She didn't need to. Kael stepped inside, silent and composed as ever. The door sealed shut behind him, softly but final. This was his room. Their room. Whether she wanted it or not, they were to share it. They had to look united, be united, and eventually create an heir. But tonight, only silence sat between them. Kael removed his jacket, then his boots, placing each with practiced precision beside the seating alcove. He didn't move toward her, didn't speak, not at first. "I thought you'd be asleep," he said at last, his voice low. "I tried," she answered without turning. A quiet pause. "I won't touch you," he said. "You know that." She turned then. "Do I?" His jaw tensed, but he held her gaze. "I meant what I said this morning. I won't touch you unless you ask." The words landed between them, not a comfort, not a threat, just truth. She crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed. "That's the problem, Kael," she said, voice soft but sure. "Eventually I'll have to ask, or you will, or we'll stop pretending we have a choice." He didn't respond right away, just moved to the console and poured himself a glass of water. "You think I want this any more than you do? I don't know what you want," she said, watching the tension in his shoulders. "You're very good at pretending." His fingers tightened around the glass. "I want to do what's expected. Keep peace. Keep control. That's what this marriage is, a symbol of control." She let out a dry laugh. "Then tell me, Commander, how does one control something this personal?" He turned to face her, leaning against the console. "You don't. You endure it." Her eyes sharpened. "That's what it'll be for you? Endurance?" "No," he said quietly, "for both of us." She stood again, pacing slowly. "I understand the need. The heir. The alliance. I know it's not personal, but that doesn't make it easier." "I'm not asking for easier," he replied. "Just honesty." She turned to him. "Then here it is. I don't want to lie down with a man I barely know. Not for politics, not for duty, and not to prove I'm useful." He didn't move, just listened. She continued. "I'll do what's expected, eventually, but I'm not ready now, and I don't know when I will be. Maybe never." Kael nodded. "Then we wait." She blinked. Just like that, a faint smile ghosted across his lips. "You're not the only one trying to breathe in this cage, Evelyne." That surprised her, not the words, but the way he said her name, the quiet ache in it. "You're afraid too," she said gently, stepping closer. "No," he said, then added with disarming honesty, "concerned. Not for me? For what happens if we fail? If either of us is seen as weak? You think sex will fix that?" "No," he said again. "But a child might?" She folded her arms tightly. "You think bringing a child into this will make it stronger? I think it'll make it harder for the world to tear us apart." They stood close now, no breath between them. His eyes weren't cold, but they weren't warm either, just open, searching. She looked down. "What if I never feel ready?" He was quiet a moment. Then I'll remain your husband in name, nothing more." She looked up, startled. "You'd accept that?" "No," he said, honest to the last. "But I'd respect it." That landed harder than anything else. She gave a single nod, a silent, "Thank you." She couldn't quite say aloud. Kael stepped back, walking to his side of the bed. He removed his belt and placed it beside the table. "I won't ask again. Not unless you tell me the answer's changed." They climbed into opposite sides of the bed, the space between them vast and quiet. Not angry, not cold, just full of too much truth. The lights dimmed, and eventually, sleep came. Two strangers under one roof, bound by duty, breathing the same still air, each pretending not to hear the sound of the other's heart. Sleep claimed them both, but peace did not.